shout out, where social media and nonsense collide. And we are back for episode 3 of the Game of Thrones review. I do want to clarify a mistake that I made in the last video about Brendan Stark and Rickard Stark both getting burned alive. It actually did not happen that way. And I learned this new information from actually a viewer of the video. And for me to clarify, Brendan Stark did not get burned alive. He actually strangled himself to death in the hopes of saving his father, who was actually hanging from the rafters and burning alive. So what King Aerys did in that situation was he put a sword in the middle of the throne room where, and Brendan Stark was actually like on like a collar and a rope, like a chain or whatever. I'm not really sure, but it was one of those things. And the sword was just a little bit too far for Brandon to reach it. So in his acts of trying to reach the sword, he actually ended up strangling himself alive in front of all of the lords and ladies of the court. So with that clarification, we're going to transition into episode 3, and I'm going to start off with the prologue for the first book, which is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. And the prologue is actually very important to the whole White Walker and Jon Snow theory. And it starts off with 3 Night's Watch men, and one who I'm going to zoom in on is Sir Waymar Boyce, because on page 2 in the last paragraph, I'm going to read this little section, and then I'm going to go explain on why it's so important. So it says, Sir Waymar Boyce was the youngest son of an ancient house with too many heirs. He was a handsome youth of 18, gray-eyed and graceful and slender as a knife. Mounted on his huge black Desiderator horse, the knight towered above Will and Jared on their smaller garrons. He wore black leather boots, black woolen pants, black moleskin gloves, and a fine supple coat of gleaming black ringmail over layers of black wool and broiled leather. So that is one of the most important and overlooked paragraphs in the prologue, because it describes what Sir Waymar Boyce is wearing, and there is only one other person in the series that wears black moleskin gloves. And let's take a wild guess on who it is. It's Jon Snow. And so with that theory, I believe that the White Walkers, when they went to go attack the 3 Night's Watchmen, they were looking for Jon Snow, and since Sir Waymar Boyce had black hair and black moleskin gloves and black mail and black everything, it really kind of stuck out to me in this theory, because I believe that the White Walkers were on the sole search of just trying to find Jon Snow and kill him, because I do believe Jon Snow is Lightbringer and is going to bring the Dream of Spring. So with that, I'm going to go into episode 1 and the Stark house. And I'm going to start off with, in the book, the first paragraph, or the first chapter is Bran. And Bran is a boy of 7 in the books and a boy of 10 in the show. And he is notorious for climbing and adventure and just seeking all these things. And he's so young that his parents and everyone wants to show him the whole world of Westeros and how, and what being a lord really means, because he potentially could become one. But Bran's whole theory on what he wanted to do was he wanted to be a knight in the King's Guard. And we know after the end of this episode that he fell out of the first keep in terms of keeping a secret for House Lannister. So that is what Bran's character was like in the first episode and the first couple of chapters of him. And he is such a crucial character in our show. Well, not our show, but in Game of Thrones, because he has so many new opportunities now that he has fallen from this tower. But then we're going to go into Arya Stark, who's my favorite character. I've loved her from the beginning. And you first see her in the show with Sansa sewing and practicing her stitching. And it's always said that Arya had the hands of a blacksmith, and Sansa was a beautiful, elegant lady and did her part. And in that, you don't really see in the show that, like, she had an argument with her septa and ran off and ran to the armory or the field to actually show Bran up in his archery, which was really funny. And then that leads to Robb Stark. Robb is the oldest and the upcoming Lord of Winterfell. And his character really comes alive when he has to really take control of Winterfell, because Catelyn Stark is upset with Bran. Bran hasn't woken up yet, and she can't really leave his room. She's devastated, and so kind of Robb takes control of, like, Catelyn's duties as well as Ned Stark's duties, since he's off going to King's Landing. Sorry. But so we have Robb, we have Arya and Bran, and we're going to lead into Sansa. Sansa is a young girl. She's very naive. She's very in love with the riches, and she's so excited to hear that the royal family is coming to Winterfell after Jon Arryn's death, who is the previous Hand of the King. And she is soon told that she will be wed to Joffrey Baratheon, who is the future king of the Seven Kingdoms. And she is so excited. She knows exactly what she has to do because she knows what being a proper lady is like. And she never really broke the rules when it came to her role as the eldest daughter and the upcoming Lady of Winterfell. So she really kind of fit into the part and made herself kind of believe and stay true to, like, what a lady should be like with her husband or her betrothed. So, and then we got little Rickon Stark. Rickon Stark, he is the youngest of them all. He is a boy of 3. He is very neglected because during this time, he really didn't have a voice. He didn't have anything except his direwolf, and everything was kind of switching and changing. So you mainly see Rickon in the crypts of Winterfell, kind of hiding and not wanting to be present because he doesn't really know how to be present. He hasn't learned, and he hasn't, like, seen anything from his parents. His parents have kind of been distant, not just distant to him, but distant to all the kids, where Ned Stark plans to go to King's Landing, and then when Catelyn Stark is so devastated over Bran. And that's really, it's hard to see that because you see this kid and you see, like, how every other, like, since going through age, that this younger one really didn't get as much as the older ones did, just based on the situation and the time period of when these series of events happened. So those are the 5 Stark children. And then we have Ned Stark, who actually went to battle with Robert Baratheon in the Robert's Rebellion. And he has always been true. He's always been faithful and honest. And you kind of don't see that when Jon Snow's there, because Catelyn Stark always has this hatred towards him, which, if you guys already don't know, that Jon Snow really isn't Ned Stark's bastard. He is the product of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, and Ned really only protected him with the name of Jon Snow, so Robert's wrath wouldn't come after him in the future. And So that was kind of Ned Stark's way of being true and faithful to his sister, because he showed so much love to his sister Lyanna, but never really could tell Catelyn because he was afraid that Catelyn wouldn't hold the secret, or couldn't really, the less anyone knew, the better. So that was kind of the point of view of Ned Stark. And then Catelyn Stark is actually Catelyn Tully, who is from the Riverlands, and she was supposed to wed Brandon Stark, but since he choked himself to death in the throne room, the marriage transferred into Ned and Catelyn, and that is how we have our Stark lineage. And next episode, I will talk about the royal family and the Baratheons and the Lannisters. And that's it from Shout Out.